أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. ثم السلام على آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم الأجمعين إلى يوم الدين. صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت، وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم. صدق الله العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We've been looking at the ayah of Quran of Surah At-Teen, Surah number 95, ayah 4, where Allah says, "Certainly, indeed, we have created the human being in the most excellent form." By extension, the human being has limitless opportunities to be able to reach his or her full potential. And with that, we've been looking at the story of the mouse and the frog. The mouse representing the body, the frog representing the soul, and the crow or the vulture representing death. And when death comes and the mouse is taken up and the frog is dangling, it's that when he laments that how I wish I had attached myself more to those who are more spiritual, more divine, those who brought divinity out in me. So in other words, for us it is a lesson that we wish to be attached to Q Hussein, the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. We want to be Husseini and leave a legacy like Abbas did when he said, Hubbul Hussein ajunnani, the love of Hussein has made me crazy. When we look at the personalities of Karbala, every single one, the moment you mention their name, they are intrinsically linked to Hussein, and that's what we want to be. And that is why tomorrow we will be reciting the ziyarah, or we will be doing the amal of Ashura and the ziyarah of Ashura. Now, let's look first at the hadith of Imam Bakr, which is on your screens. Imam said, if you live in far and distant lands, and Yabna Rasulullah, we're not only in far and distant lands, we're at home. We can't even go sit together in the mosque this year. But he says, and you're unable to travel to visit the grave of Imam Hussein. And I'm sure he would say, and you're unable to go and sit with those who are Husseinis and do salam, do the ziyarah of Imam Hussein, then turn towards the direction of his grave. So we're going to turn towards Iraq and send greetings to him. Imam continues to say that also you will send la'na. In other words, you ask Allah to withdraw his mercy from those who committed injustice. Now, what does ziyarah mean? The word ziyarah in essence is derived from the word zawr. Now, zawr literally means to deflect or to turn away, literally move away. That's what zawr means. So how does that connect? A zair is one, the one who visits is one, who moves away from everything but the one he's going to visit. So the focus is on nothing. You empty your mind of everything except Hussein when you're saying Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. We might read Ziyarat Ashura tomorrow with our Ma'al of Ashura. You might be reading it at some times. But surely one behavior change we can make in ourselves, that every time we pick up a glass of water, we can make a behavioral change and energize the water by saying, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. As a child, I remember that when we sat down for dinner, if we were talking about anybody or anything, my grandmother would ask for that water to be removed from the table because it would absorb the energy that was wrong, and she would recite salawat and she would recite Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. It is only now I realize how much water gets energized. Anyway, so that is our behavioral change. Let's go back to ziyarah. So ziyarah in essence is an expression of love. It is to color oneself with the attributes of the visited one. That means the moment I say ziyarah, I am trying to become Husseini. And there's an expression of love. So first, what is love? Love remains an enigma. I guess there's so much written about love, more than any other subject in the world. And true love bears little resemblance on what we read or the movies that we see. Oh my goodness, that is nothing like that. So let's look at Quran. Surah Al Imran, ayah 31. Allah says, In kuntum tuhibbun Allah, if you love Allah, fattabi'uni, follow me. That's what the Prophet says. Yuhbibkum Allah, Allah will love you. Wa yaghfir lakum dhunubakum, He'll forgive all your sins. Wallahu ghafurur rahim. Allah is all forgiving and all compassionate. Love is the perpetual turning towards the beloved. Continually, that's all you think about. Hussein, with a heart that is distraught with love. And it's all based on resemblance and similarity. So again, a story by Rumi in his Mathnawi is about a stork and a raven. And these were friends, and nobody could understand how two such different birds could be friends. When the man goes near, he sees that both have broken legs. There is a similarity. And Imam Sadiq says, religion is all about the heart. It's all about the emotions of the heart. It's all about love at the end of the day. We fall in love, and I mentioned this right in the first Majlis. We fall in love with those who bring about godliness, who bring about divinity, who show it out. We fall in love with those who display the attributes of divinity. And that is why part of our Furu'id-Din is tawalla and tabarra. So what is tawalla? So if you look at tawalla, Allah says, Surah number 58, ayah 22, you will not find a group of people who believe in Allah and the last day, and then they show love for the enemies of Allah. So who are the enemies of Allah? The enemies of Allah are those who commit injustice to creation. He says, even though they are their fathers or their sons or their brothers or their family members, they will not do that because that is how they are. They're inclined towards goodness and righteousness, and they will not accept any sort of injustice. Tabarra comes from bara'a, which is disassociation. Literally, it is to disassociate ourselves from those who commit injustice. And that's what la'na is about. La'na, in essence, is a dua asking Allah to withdraw His mercy. It's not about abuse. It's about withdrawing His mercy. In legal terms, la'na is about depriving the rights available to someone as a citizen. And Allah mentions la'na in the Quran. Problem is we look at it as curse. Like I said, it is dua asking Allah to withdraw His mercy. So in the Quran, for example, Allah sends la'na on shaitan for refusing to accept the prophethood of Prophet Adam. Surah number 4, Surah An-Nisa, ayah 118. He sends la'na to Ashabus Sabt, the people of Saturday as such, who broke the covenant of Allah. We find la'na on those who hide the truth. Even in Mubahila, which just went, Allah sends la'na on those who lie, who don't tell the truth. Now let's look at Surah Al-Ahzab, which we will recite tomorrow in the Salah for the A'mal of Ashura. Inna alladhina ya'udhuna Allah wa rasulahu. Those who hurt Allah and His Messenger. Look at the words Allah used. La'nahum Allahu fi dunya wal akhirah. Allah will withdraw His mercy from them in the dunya and the akhirah. Wa'adda lahum adhaban muhina. And He will prepare for them a painful punishment. So if we were to ask the Prophet, Ya Muhammad, Ya Rasulullah, who do you love? What hurts you most? And he would say, Fatimatu bis'atu minni. Fatima is a part of me. Hussein minni wa ana min al-Hussein. Hussein is part of me and I am part of Hussein. Would he not say that? And this is why we do it. This is why we say this. So we do not commit those acts of injustices. Now let's look at the importance of ziyarah, and then we will look at, you can only love someone when you know them. How much do we know about Imam Hussein? But before that, let's see about Ziyarat Ashura and its benefits. My goodness. 6th Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam says to Sudair, his companion, do you perform the ziyarah every day? He said, no. How about every week? He said, no. He said, once a month? He said, no. He said, what stops you from going to your roof? Look left, look right. Raise your hands and say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. What stops you and me? Let's go out on your deck, on your back garden, in your front garden, look up at the sky and say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Ayatollah Tabrizi says that the door of Hussein is comprehensive mercy. There is a rapid response. There is approval. Imam Khomeini, he would do salam to Abu Abdullah before and after every salah. How difficult can it be? Imam Sadiq tells his companion Safwan, when you are confronted with adversity, seek redress from Imam Hussein with the ziyarah. Whether you are near or you are far, your demands will be met. You will have entry to Jannah, immunity from Jahannam. It is the power of Shifa'ah. It will lighten your punishment. Let me tell you a story I've heard from childhood about Mullah Muhammad Yazdi. He inquired about a friend who had just died, who could have been a better person. I was a little worried about him. And then he sees his friend in his dream and he's in a good place. And he says, how so? He says, you see, there was a lady who was buried yesterday. And Sayyid al-Shuhada came to visit her. And all of us around her have found some peace. And it's wonderful. He goes to visit. She was the wife of somebody called Ustad Haddad. So he goes to visit Ustad Haddad. He gives his condolences and says, what was so special about your wife? So she was an ordinary mom, housewife. She looked after children. She looked after my house. She was a good woman. Anything else about her that was different, that was peculiar to her? And he says, I know one thing. And she finished all her work. She would go to the roof. She would go to the top of the house with their flat roof. And she would recite Ziyara Ashura. And if you think we can't get there, and we can't at the moment, we can't even get to the mosque. Look at this story. Abdullah Bahjat, he narrates this. He says there were some farmers who were visiting Imam Rida. So they were going towards Mashhad to visit Imam Rida. And they passed by a farm. And as they were passing by places, they were telling people, come and join us. So this particular farmer that was there, they said, come. He said, I can't leave my farm. I just can't. There's nobody to look after my animals. I don't have anyone. And they said, all you're worried about is your business. Come on, a few days. He said, I just can't. When they persisted, he turns towards Mashhad and he says, Assalamu alayka ya ibn Rasulullah. And every single one of them heard the answer, Wa alayka salam. So you know what? Even when we say that from here, and not only today, not only tomorrow, throughout the year, every time you drink water, every time you go under the stars, under the sky, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. So what is this salam? Salam is to be free of calamities, whether apparent or hidden. So when I say salam to someone, I'm saying, I wish you to be free from calamities, whether apparent or hidden. Now remember, the answer is wajib. So can you imagine when we say Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah and he gives a reply and he says Wa alayka salam. What more could we want than a Masoom Imam telling you and me that may you be free of calamities, whether apparent or hidden. Imam Hussein used to, it's his hadith where it says, no conversation is legitimate without salam. If you want to look at Quran, Surah An-Nisa, ayah 86, Allah says, وَإِذَا حَيِّيتُم بِتَحِيَّةٍ فَحَيِّوا بِأَحْسَنُ مِنْهَا أَوْ رُدُّهَا إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. When you're greeted, greet with the same or better. And Allah has an account over everything, better or equal. So can you imagine Imam replying to us, and it's wajib. Allama Tabatabai says it's a form of identity for Muslims. As-salam is an attribute from the Asma al-Husna, from the attributes of Allah. So spread it amongst yourself. So when we say salam to someone, we're actually saying, may Allah always envelope you with His name of As-salam. And Ziyarat Ashura is a manifestation of tawalla, and I'll try and put it together. When we say salam and la'na, tawalla and tabarra, tawalla is seeking perfection, tabarra is fleeing, running away from imperfection. So tomorrow with the amal, we will start with 4 rakats of salah, and it'll be in units of 2. In the first unit of salah, we will recite Surah Al-Kafirun and Surah Al-Ikhlas after Surah Al-Fatiha. Kafirun, literally, the focus of Surah Al-Kafirun is the first time the identity is based on what you believe. Lakum deenakum waliya deen. To you, your religion, to me, my religion. Basically, identification by being a Muslim. Awesome. Ikhlas is in exposition of Al-Ahad, the one. We're a monotheistic religion. We believe in the exclusivity, the unique God, and that's what it's about. Then we have the other 2 rakats where we'll recite Surah Al-Ahzab and Surah Al-Munafiqun, and a little bit about Surah Al-Ahzab because it has 2 major themes. There's the battle of Ahzab that is there, and then you have the incident of Zayd and Zainab. So we're looking at an external battle, and then we're looking at domestic issues. Read over it. It is a phenomenal surah, and maybe one ayah that you always got to remember is 33. إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. The ayah that we've been talking about. Surah Al-Munafiqun is 11 ayat, and it's an overview of hypocrisy. See, in the army of Yazid, there were those who had seen the Prophet, and they actually signed, they made it legitimate to kill Abu Abdullah. These were Sahaba who had memorized the Quran. We hear about Ibn Muljim. He was one of the best Qaris of Quran. So it talks about those who go out of their way to make it apparent or appear that they are close to Rasulullah, but they're not. And the Prophet said, munafiqism or hypocrisy enters the heart like a black ant on a black rock on a black night. So it is a time to ponder, am I Husseini? Am I really Husseini? Or am I not Husseini? And then the Ziyarah of Ashura. To take little bits and put them in our daily life, in every salah, in our kunut, is just something we should do because it's beautiful. So there's an extract that I absolutely adore from Ziyarah Ashura, where we raise our hands in dua and we tell Allah, Allahumma aj'al mahyaya mahya Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa mamati mamata Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Base my life on the life of Muhammad and his Ahlul Bayt, and base my death on the death of Muhammad and his Ahlul Bayt. And the idea here is, how am I going to base my life and death on them if I don't know anything about them? So sending salams to Imam Hussein tomorrow, let's just know a little bit about him. So Imam lived for 56 years. Now if you can divide his life and think of the numbers 6, 36, 46, 56. Now 6 could be 6 to 7 years, but I'm going to take it as 6 so we don't forget. 6, 36, 46, 56. It's quite not that difficult to remember. So for the first 6 years, he is attached to his grandpa and his mom so much. We all know the story about Futrus. We see how how the Prophet named him Hussein, how the Akika was done, how when the madrasa child was crying, the Prophet said, that sounds like my Hussein, don't let that child cry. The Prophet could not even bear that. He lengthened his sajda because Imam Hussein had climbed on his back. We talked about Habib ibn Mazahir, how he was walking with Mazahir, the Prophet, and Habib is with Imam Hussein. All these stories must come in. In Mubahila, we see he is a part of those who went there. He was there at Ghadir. So at the age of 6 or 7 is when the Prophet dies and his mom dies. So that's like a milestone. Then we have at the age of 36 where Imam Ali dies. Now for those 30 years, that means the time the Prophet died he was 6, then for 30 years from that time he is just attached to his dad. You know, he called all his sons Ali. He was so attached to his dad. He went with his father everywhere. He got all his knowledge from Imam Ali alayhi salam. And he marries, now we know some of these names. We know Shaharbani, who was the mom of Imam Sajjad. We know Layla, who was the mother of Ali al-Akbar, his eldest son. But we find that her name has not been mentioned in any of the books when they talk about Karbala. So the scholars have sort of concluded that she was not alive at the time of the tragedy of Karbala, because she was also related to Yazid. Remember, Shaharbanu neither. She, we all know, died a few days after the birth of Imam Sajjad. He married Ishaq. She was first married to Imam Hassan, and there she gave birth to 2 sons and 1 daughter. When Imam Hassan was poisoned, he told Imam Hussein to marry her. And then sometimes after the death of Imam Hassan, she got married to Imam Hussein and gave birth to Fatima Kubra. That was Ishaq. Then we have Qudayya. Qudayya was from the tribe of Qat'a, and her name is not known a lot, it's not mentioned a lot. But she gave birth to 1 child, Ja'far, who died in childhood. And then we all know Rabab. My goodness. She was the daughter of Imra al-Qais, who was chief of the tribe of Kinda. And we find that she was the mother of Sayyidah Sakina, or Ruqayya sometimes, and Abdullah, who is also known as Ali al-Askar. So we know these were his wives, his children. Historians all agree with Ali al-Akbar, the eldest. Then Ali Zainul Abidin, and we know Imam Sajjad. Then Ali al-Asghar, we all read about him, Abdullah in other words. Then there was Ja'far, whom I said died in infancy. Fatima Kubra, who was left in Medina because she was ill. And Sayyidah Sakina or Ruqayya. These were his children. So in these 30 years under Imam Ali, is gaining knowledge, is having his family, building his family. And then when Imam Ali dies, he has 10 years with Imam Hassan. So we find from 36 to 46, he's with Imam Hassan. And they strategically plan together. There's 6 months between them. They plan how they will revive the teachings of the Prophet, how they will bring about the purity of what the Prophet had taught. And it was Imam Hassan who did all the foundation laying. And it was Imam Hussein who brings about the revolution. So 46 to 56. So it's at age 46 when his brother dies. So now he's on his own. But they have planned how they will revive the sunnah of the Prophet, how they will bring it to life again. If there was anybody who was the walking, talking Quran, it was Hussein. Absolutely phenomenal. Now, just some practical stuff. Very often we find people not doing salam on the day of Ashura. Don't even understand why. Sayyid Sistani says, هَذَا عَمَلٌ غَيْرُ صَحِيح. This is not the right thing to do. Greet each other. I know we're not going to see each other in the mosque. But you know what? When somebody says salam, even online like this, at least reply. Depriving somebody the thawab of salam, my goodness, what is wrong with us? It is the identity for Muslims. And when we greet Imam, it is the reply from him, and I mention this again and again, that constitutes the miraculous effect of this ziyarah. Just, if you forget everything else, just continually, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. And finally, tonight is the night of Ashura. And Imam asks for respite for this night. And I will repeat what I started right in the beginning when he said, the reason when he wanted this night, this one night, because he said, أَنَا أُحِبُّ الصَّلَاةِ, I love to pray. وَتِلَاوَةَ كِتَابِهِ, and I love to recite his book. وَكَثْرَةُ الدُّعَاء, and I love to do lots of dua. وَالْإِسْتِغْفَارِ, and I like to do istighfar. So spend the night tonight. We should all sit together and spend the night tonight with these 4 things: praying salah, reciting his book, lots of dua and istighfar in the name of Hussein, so we may proudly bear the brand Q Hussein and make ourselves free like we're the followers of Abul Hahrar, like him, so free from everything, only attached to divinity. So let's go to Karbala, and today we'll remember this baby, this phenomenal baby. Let me talk about his mom. I talked a little bit about her, but Rabab. She was the daughter of Imra al-Qais. an Arab noble, but he was a Christian, and he accepted Islam during the Khilafah of Umar, Hazrat Umar. And Imam went to visit him, to welcome him. Imam Ali went to visit him and welcome him. And he says, I give you 3 of my daughters in marriage. He said, my Malia I give to Imam Ali, my Salma to Imam Hassan, and Rabab to Imam Hussein. And Rabab was a poet. She was a learned poet. Imam used to say, I swear I love the house in which Rabab and Sakina are living. I love them dearly. I would sacrifice all my belongings to them, and no one can disapprove my admiration towards them. On the day of Ashura, Mom raises her hands in dua. This is Rabab, and she says, Ya Rab, give my son life so he's useful to you. Her child is in the cradle, Abdullah Ravi, also known as Ali al-Asghar. Her child is in the cradle. He hasn't had any sustenance for 3 days. His mom's milk has dried up. He's had no water. And then she hears the sound of Imam Hussein. He's saying, Hal min nasirin yansurna, hal min mughithin yughithuna. Is there anyone to help us? Is there anyone to come to our aid? The baby throws himself out of the cradle. Mom weeps. Dad comes in and says, Rabab, I am still here. Mom says, Ali al-Asghar has thrown himself out of the cradle. Dad takes baby, covers him with his abba and says, I shall try and quench his thirst. Surely there are fathers in the army over there. He takes the baby under his abba, under his cloak, and he comes in front of the army. The army conjecturizes, Hussein is bringing a Quran. He comes to the army. If you think I have wronged you and I am guilty in your eyes, and this child has done you no harm, give him a little bit of water. His mother's milk is dry. The baby ran his tongue over his dry lips. There is commotion because there are fathers. There is an inherent love Allah puts in the human being. There is commotion. They take their water bags and they are going to run towards the river Furat because they too understand this, that they can go and do that. Ibn Ziyad notices this and thinks there's a revolution on his hands. He says, Iqtal qalam al-Hussein. Kill the words of Hussein. He says to Hurmala. Hurmala takes a 3-pointed arrow. There are many narrations, but I narrate what the Zakirin say. He takes this arrow and the arrow drops. Ibn Ziyad says, are you scared? Are you scared of a baby? He says, no. He says, when I look at the tents, I can see the door of the tent rise. Mom is standing there. She is watching. As the tent door goes down, he pulls another arrow, and the arrow hits its target. It pins the child to the dad's arm. Imam raises his hands and he says, Ya Allah, oh my Allah, accept this from me. How is he going to take baby back to his mom? Imam walks to the tent and then he walks back. And that is why in the Amal of Ashura, we walk 7 times back and forth and we say, Ridam biqadaihi wa tasliman li amri. Ridam biqadaihi wa tasliman li amri. I'm in absolute peace with your orders, with your decree, and I'm at peace with your orders. Eventually, he takes baby back to mom. Mom takes one look at her baby and she says, Asghar, do they kill babies like you too? If I had known, I'd have dressed you up like a mujahid. Mom and Dad go behind the tents. Dad with his sword digs a little grave. Mom places baby in the grave. Dad closes the grave and Mom says, Asghar, I have no water. If I had water, I'd have poured it over your grave. I have my tears though, Asghar, and whatever I have, I will put over your grave. It takes me back to narrations that I have heard of Shami Ghariba. when she would just sit up, Mum would just sit up, and Sayyidah Zainab would say, Amra Bab, put your head down. Rest for a little while. You have a long few days ahead of us. And she would say, I can't do that. For whenever I put my head down on the ground, I can hear my asghar. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. سيعلمون الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. Let us pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the wasila of Ali al-Asghar. There are so many children in the world who are suffering. Ya Allah, alleviate their suffering. Ya Allah, those who are ill, in the name of Ali al-Asghar, please give them shifa and alleviate this difficulty that we are facing in the world, in the name of this tiny little mujahid. Let us end with the dua for protection. لي خمسة أطفي بها حر الوباء الحاتمة المصطفى والمرتضى وأبناهما والفاطمة. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم.